go, buddy.
Let's do it.
Bam.
You start now?
Yep. Alrighty.
Okay, hello everybody. This is episode 1 of the Stronghold podcast, where we discuss all things Asian, MMA, martial arts related, video game, nerd culture, anything that you like. I'm Coach Luke. We're here at Stronghold MMA, and I'm with my best friend Gregg, the Brewmaster Speirs.
I was going to say, let them guess who's the MMA guy and who's the brewmaster here.
Well,
pretty obvious.
Your beard gives it away, dude.
Well, I mean,
you have a very
it's a choking beard.
stereotypically brewmaster type beard. I can just imagine you carrying a big,
kegs of beer?
A big keg of beer down to your
Dripping
tits.
all, yeah.
Just
wait until we roll. It'll just be in your face.
It does.
It's a secret weapon.
It's a choke. You can
absolutely.
wrap that around somebody.
Do it
You can
braids.
almost Ezekiel choke somebody with your beard.
Don't give me ideas. Yeah, it's amazing to be here. Holy moly. This is like, well, thanks, plane.
We got an airplane going.
Yeah, I know, right? It feels like, what a natural place to be.
Yeah.
It's like Bujitsu 2.0 upgraded.
Yeah,
we had
man.
to do it. We had to do it.
So this is episode 1 of our podcast, but Greg and I actually have an old podcast called Brewjitsu, where we
in the archives of the internet.
The archives of the internet, where we drank beer, kind of reviewed them, talked a little shit, talked about some martial arts. But I'm excited to do this one because, for me, there's not really a great source of MMA media breakdown type stuff locally in Singapore. And the martial arts scene in Singapore is huge. It's massive. There's gyms everywhere. And I feel like the only place that you can get information about like one championship or any fight scene based out of Asia is through like the normal avenues. Like, I mean, you can watch Joe Rogan, you can watch Brendan Schaub. There are MMA podcasts out there, but they're all in the U.S. They're all like UFC based. And there's a thriving martial arts scene here in Singapore. And I don't know anybody that's talking about it.
Even websites as well, mostly based in the U.S. Reporting over here, or we find out on Yahoo or something like that,
It's really growing a lot. And One Championship is making some big moves. They've signed Demetrius Johnson, Eddie Alvarez. They have some of the best Muay Thai fighters and kickboxers in the world now. I think they're going to do a One Championship show in the U.S.
With Turner.
With Turner, apparently.
Well, I mean, we'll see, right?
So they're making big moves, and there's nobody inside Singapore within the scene to talk about it. So I feel like there's a little niche that we can hit there. And for those of you that are listening that don't know, I've been a coach in Singapore, MMA coach for about 6 years now in Singapore and Malaysia. And so I've trained at all the gyms. I trained at Evolve. I used to be a coach at Trifecta. I'm now here. I'm an owner at Stronghold MMA.
Crazy.
So I've been in the scene for a minute. And just be nice to get someone who's actually here where the base of one is. And it's just great. The best MMA scene in Asia, get the source
so
from
much
the horse's
talent
mouth.
floating around here as well. And like just coming through ONE FC, admittedly it's been a hot minute since I've watched a full ONE FC. Just time.
You still call it ONE FC?
Oh my God.
That shit's One Championship,
Dude,
bro.
Exactly.
They rebranded.
See what I mean? You
didn't get the memo?
ONE FC, jeez. How many years has it been since it was that? But just like the amount of talent coming through, like Demetrius Johnson coming in, appearing, like these are huge names. And it's really showing the caliber of fighters over here that I think went under the radar a little bit, because you'll have people that maybe are very successful in their country, but they don't have a lot of representation outside of their country, right? And to get on such a global platform like ONE is huge, and to be able to fight these big name, say, American fighters or whatnot, and beat them, right? That's the crazy thing. It's like,
well, you saw Eddie Alvarez. He lost his first fight. He got knocked out by Timothy Nastyukin in like 3 minutes. I mean, he got his ass beat in that fight. That's 2 fights.
Do you think you underestimate him? Because different,
that guy's just a beast.
Yeah.
That was 2 fights removed from his Conor McGregor fight. And so he was 2 fights removed from being the UFC champion. And then he loses to a relative unknown in Asia.
Yep.
And even Demetrius Johnson has had tough fights, his first 2 fights. He won both of them, but he was tested a bit more than people thought. He was tested in some cases more than he was in the UFC. So it does bring a little bit of attention to the fighters in ONE. And it just shows you that in the fight game, you just don't. There are people in the unknown parts of Russia. And of
they're
Asia,
fighting bears in forests
Thailand.
out there.
There are people that people don't know about who are just as good as some of these people that have been training and fighting MMA at the highest level for years.
And now they're getting the recognition, so more access to like facilities and bigger name gyms and things like that. So their training just kind of hits this tipping point and explodes. So they're only going to get better. Which is crazy.
And ONE has done a crazy thing where they've really tapped into this market of Southeast Asia in particular, which is a mecca for martial arts. I mean, you talk about Muay Thai with the Thais. I mean, there are countless 17-year-old Thai boys who have had
trees in half.
300 fights, who will fuck up almost everybody at the high level in striking in particular. I mean, you get those people with some grappling, and you get those people with jiu-jitsu, and that, I mean, you're talking insane levels of martial arts. And that's not to even exclude places like Myanmar and Singapore and Japan and China, where they're starting to really produce some talent now. And I mean, this whole
Japan
section
was kind of always on the radar for it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Japan was the only mecca here, other than in Singapore.
Exactly.
I think now.
Yeah, you had to split your. Well, yeah, and it was before Singapore. I mean, it's not that long that it's been in Singapore, right? So before there, it was Japan.
I mean, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, that shit's Japanese. It came from Maeda, who came from Japan, who basically created. He focused on the Newaza aspect of judo, and for those of you who don't know, judo is. It's all about takedowns, right? You're on the feet, you're wearing your gi, and you can trip and you can throw each other. And the idea is just to throw your partner. But there's an aspect of judo on the ground where they can do things like arm bars and guard, and that's called Newaza.
Right.
And Maeda just took Newaza and pulled that.
Is this like once you lost your samurai sword, that kind of thing? It was hand-to-hand combat. How would you incapacitate someone in armor?
I don't know.
Couldn't
they just well, that's the interesting thing about the Japanese is they were masters of martial arts with weapons and then unarmed as well. Because even in their karate and grappling styles, that's all unarmed based.
Mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
you know.
And so Maeda took that to Brazil, and he basically took it to the Gracies, and then they developed it into what it is. But it is in its heart Japanese. Yeah. So they've been the masters, in my opinion, of unarmed combat for
Jiu-jitsu is the most Portuguese word as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it would be judo if it come from the source, if it came straight from Japan. Huh. But anyway, so yeah, Japan's been the mecca, but now I think Singapore is number one. There's so many good places here. I mean, when I first moved to Singapore 6-7 years ago, there were like 4 gyms. Right. There was like Evolve. Yep. There was like BJJ Singapore. Juggernaut was around. Fight G. Impact with a K, right? I think, and that was it. And then now there's a goddamn gym on every block.
I couldn't tell you how many there are. 30, 50,
yeah, when
60?
I go to these jiu-jitsu tournaments, they have your academies there as you sign up, and the list is just huge. There's all these little gyms that people are making, purple belts opening up their own thing. Fair. New black belts all the time. The other thing, when I came to Singapore, there were maybe between 5 and 10 black belts in Singapore. And half of them were at Evolve.
I was going to say, well, do you think Evolve's played such a huge part in the growth of Singapore MMA, right?
For sure.
You can't
you can't deny that.
Yeah, no, or deny it, ignore it.
With One and Evolve specifically, right? They're owned by Chatri, so they're owned by the same dude who's
lovely dude.
The reputation is he's a bit of a gangster.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't know the man. I trained at Evolve for 2 years. I crossed paths with him a couple times, but he's doing shit. He's running around, but he's got the reputation of being a pretty shrewd businessman, and he's taken martial arts in Asia to the next level. I mean, I'm sure he's got a lot of help doing it, but with Evolve and with One coming up together, and he's pushing his brand in that together, it's really just made Singapore a mecca of martial arts. And now all these other gyms are coming in to try to compete with Evolve. And it's good. Just the martial arts culture in general is just booming right now.
Other gyms,
here.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Stronghold. Stronghold MMA. So, we're trying to do the same thing, man. They're our number one competitor, I guess you'd say. But it's all love for me, man. As long as there's a place to train. There's different markets here. There's different locations. We're the only gym within like 5 kilometers of us. So just on location alone, there's something to be said there. And as long as the martial arts culture is growing, I'm down.
I mean, and Singapore, the irony is, even though Singapore is such a small place, people rarely want to travel very far. So there is market for gyms everywhere.
I mean, there's 3 Evolves? There's 7 million people in fucking Singapore or some shit like that. Trust me.
I don't think they all go to Evolve.
No, half. Half. I've been to some of those classes, man. They got hundreds of people in there.
But then, again, it just shows you how much love there is for MMA in Singapore. Yeah. People crawling out of the woodwork at 6 in the morning or 9 o'clock at night.
It's very trendy right now here. That's why this is why I want to do a podcast about it. Because you hear on all of the Western podcasts all the time about Singapore, about One's doing all these great things, about all the black belts here,
it's
about
from the outside looking in.
I mean, we had Keenan Cornelius here when I was at Trifecta. And he came in for a seminar, and he was just rolling with everybody. And we had a group of the instructors all get together to roll with him. And he had and there were 6 black belts there, and I was there for the rolling. And he even said to us, he's like, I did not realize the level here was so high. He kind of just thought, it's in the middle of Southeast Asia. It's going to be. But then he rolls up, and there's 6 black belts all Brazilian, ready to go.
Yeah.
And they were all chomping at the bit. And he was cool, man. He was cool as fuck. He was really cool to train with.
I may have misunderestimated this place. Yeah, no, totally.
But people were surprised when they come here about how big the martial arts culture is. And, at my gym, we're just trying to expand that. And that's another thing about these gyms, right, about Evolve in particular. I mean, they're a mega gym. There are hundreds and hundreds of people on that student roster. And, we're going for a different vibe here. Like, this is a small gym. It's owned by a couple people. There's, 2 teachers. It's the same people every day. You're going to see the same coach when you walk in the door. You're going to see me. You're going to see my wife. It's going to be the same people all the time.
It's bespoke MMA.
And it's one MMA program. It's not Evolve where you have one instructor this day, one instructor this day, 5 ties that you're going with. No, it's like there's a head coach, and that person's going to take care of you, and that's all it is. So we're looking for an intimate family vibe here. It's mostly like kids and working professionals, and we're inside Horse City. My gym is here, and to the left of us is a horse riding place where you can literally come and ride a horse in the middle of Singapore. Most people don't even think that's the thing. There's a bar across the street. We got a yoga studio here, a kids baby pool for training kids how to swim behind us, and then like a preschool over there. So it's just all family environment. So it's either like Clydesdales walking by or like little kids running after squirrels and shit with their parents.
I'm going to have to be here at least 2 days a week.
It's perfect. Like, yeah, man, for sure. You got to come train. But the vibe here is cool. And it's a low-key, much more home-friendly training environment. Everybody here is a working professional. They can't get beat up. Like, there's no one here trying to fight in one. Like, if you're 5 years old or if you're a 40-year-old dad, we're going to find a way for you to train. And you're going to train with people from every level. And but the scene here is just beautiful, man, and I wanted to make a podcast and talk about it.
Yeah. As is happening.
And shall we do the tradition when you and I do a podcast? Should we start?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but I want to say also to celebrate, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure. So this is in celebration of our old Brewjitsu podcast. We are going to drink what's literally called pink. Was it?
Well, because we were always talking. I'm a huge nerd for like sour beers and things like that. And I just got back from California, and a buddy of mine hooked me up with this Belching Beaver purple drink. It's a kettle sour made with raspberries and boysenberries and blackberries and things like that. We were always talking about having sour beer on the podcast. We never got around to it.
It's a very underrated beer, man. A lambic or a sour. We discussed this is not a lambic, but it is a sour beer, and they're underrated. But I think it's because you can't really smash a bunch of them because they're sweet.
Watch me.
Oh well.
That's sweet.
I stand corrected.
Buddy, you're in trouble if you think.
This one?
Look at this.
Puckering.
Look at this. Look at that pretty little thing.
Show it to the camera.
Absolutely. Yoink.
Oh, it's thick, dude.
Yeah.
It's cloudy. Look at that. This is drink.
Super nice.
This is drink porn.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean,
how's the light?
Dude,
look off that Wugong. Does that look good?
I grew up on Ribena.
Yeah, dude.
Right. I mean, you first drink with your eyes, right? And that's.
Yeah. Wugong, do you drink? Not beer.
This doesn't taste like beer, 100%. It tastes like.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers, brother. Hey.
Brewjitsu podcast.
Brewjitsu.
Stronghold podcast.
Living on. Yeah, you're doing your thing. I'm doing my thing. We've definitely leveled up for sure. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's almost a bit sweet tart. It's got a really
that heady, fresh raspberry nose to it.
It's almost got a really big wash of raspberry right away.
Anyone that's just listening, we're drinking this. It looks like Ribena. It honestly looks like Ribena.
And it's literally called Purple Drink.
Oh, and I'm on this constant. So being a brewmaster, I work in Singapore. I work at a company. Trouble Brewing, represent. Stronghold, represent.
Singapore lager, baby.
Singapore lager.
That shit's underrated, bro. That is a good drink.
We're getting there. Taking on the big boys.
We're not
It's
sponsored
crazy.
by them, but I'm saying that's a really solid lager. What's the alcohol in this?
Like, I want to say like 5.5, 6.
Purple Drink, baby.
Purple Drink.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah, but lovely.
5.5%.
What's up? Hold it. Anyway, I can pop this down here. But this is
leave it on the
it's a
table,
sipper, right? It'll keep you.
Oh yeah,
like,
this will do the job.
Oh yeah.
And we got a couple IPAs sitting in the back.
Yeah, some of that trash
just
panda.
in case we get a little trash
Again,
panda.
5.5%. So we're not going super. IPAs usually like 5.2 to 8.5% or something like that.
5.5. That'll do it.
Perfect. Yeah, I like the light ones anyway. That's why we make a session IPA. It's 4.5%.
Because you can just drink way too many of them and not even realize what's happened.
Yeah, you don't fall off your chair.
Yeah. I teach kids, by the way.
It's past 12. We're recording this past 12, so the sun's officially
5 o'clock somewhere, but not here.
Thank
So one
you,
thing we
Alan.
got to talk about, dude, is the fights yesterday.
Oh man,
So yesterday was UFC 241,
Yep.
one of the biggest fights of the year.
Oh.
Insane card. All 3 of the main fights were absolutely
Delivered.
insane. And if you guys haven't seen it, you got to go check that out because the main event title fight between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier was insane. Probably the best title fight, heavyweight
Seen in a
title
while.
fight I've ever seen.
ever.
Specifically the heavyweight title fight. I think there's been better fights, but heavyweight championship fight, I think that's up there as one of the craziest fights ever seen.
Just slugging it out,
Dude.
Slugging it out.
Even your wife. So we're
Yeah.
sitting there at Gregg's house yesterday watching, and his wife, who's 8 months pregnant, 7.5 months pregnant, is
up?
sitting there, and she's like, "These guys are just hitting each other. How are
Yeah.
they not being knocked
And like,
out?"
it's not like she doesn't watch MMA. Like
Yeah,
we'll
she's
watch
seen
cards
plenty
all the
of-
time.
Yeah,
So
for
and
sure.
she's just like, how is they still going? It's
They
like
were beating the
we
shit
feel the
out
same
of
way.
each other. Every time Cormier would snap out a jab, he would hand fight up like that, parry, and just come off with his jab, and you just see the head get snapped back.
But it
snapped
also,
back.
you know, you talk about Diaz who throws punches and bunches, constant volume, tuk 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 tuk, right? How many hundreds of punches are coming at you? Cormier also threw that many punches, right? But Diaz's punches aren't supposed to put you down.
Yeah, those are power punches.
Cormier's punches, they all are incredibly hard.
Yeah, and Stipe
Even from,
too.
From like what, 4 inches away,
Yeah,
something like that. Just
that's
bunk bunk.
That's the thing that I was saying about yesterday with Cormier. So for those of you that don't know, I'm sure a lot of you watched the fight, but Cormier's got this high guard style, right, where he puts up his hands and he'll almost like hold hands with you, or he'll try to grab your wrist.
Like the old wrestling.
So he's like the old, what's it called, where you stick your fingers and you try to like wrist lock each other. And so he would do that, and he reaches, and then while his arm's extended, like about as far as my arms are extended now, so it's fully extended, he'll parry the shot and then come up with a jab that's no more than, let's say, 1 foot or something. So it's not a lot of distance to generate power on, because he's throwing it with his hand already fully extended. Most people will throw a jab from their chin, so they got a lot of distance to cover as they throw that punch. Cormier is throwing it from about 1/3 the max distance he could, so he's losing a lot of power. But the power he generated
But at
from
the
that
same
short
time, he's
distance.
also primed against Miocic, who's pushing his hands back, right? So is
Well,
there
he
an argument to
parries,
be made?
pulls back slightly, and then boom,
Boom,
throws the
turns it
shoulder
over.
in. So, but either way, it was just insane the kind of power he was generating off of what couldn't be any more than like an 8-inch
Yeah.
punch, for a lot of the time.
Well, I
And,
mean, that's Miocic. I mean, Miocic has range, right? So obviously
Yeah.
you want to try and immediately remove that.
which is
from
why
the
it's
fight.
bad for Stipe to touch him like that. Because if he's extending his arms, he's lost his range, which is the long, which he has the advantage
Yep.
of. And he made those adjustments later on. And the craziest thing about the fight was Cormier's beating him up
Yep.
with this high guard,
Yep.
right? He'll cross his hands a lot. He plays this parry game from when he's touching your hands. And what that does, though, is when you lift your hands up high above your shoulders like that, is it
Body
exposes your
shots.
belly.
Yep.
And Stipe probably made
Yep.
the best adjustment, one of the best adjustments in title fight history. I think maybe an exception could be Henry Cejudo when he just fought Marlon Moraes, because Cejudo made a great adjustment because he was getting his ass whooped in that first round. And I think this is right up there, maybe even more so because this is a big rivalry fight. But, I mean, Stipe, DC was taking it to him. Took him down the first round, slammed him on his head, controlled him. I think in the second or third round they said that he was landing 80% of his significant
Isn't that
strikes.
crazy?
I mean, that is triple
80%
what a normal
heavyweight.
Yes, a heavy
strike throws.
which is why
Like-
your wife is like, how are they hitting each other so much without falling over? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's insane. This is a 40-year-old. This is 2 dads just
I
beating
mean,
the shit
and
out of
Yoel
each other.
Romero. Yoel Romero, same thing.
42 for him.
Like taking a beating, still
I mean,
going.
Some of these people are freaks, man. But anyway, so spoiler alert, the fights were yesterday. But Stipe made an adjustment and he started throwing the liver shot in the third round. So Cormier's
But it was-
hands.
And yeah, sorry, carry on.
That's all right. So Cormier's hands are up like this, and when Cormier is going up here to fight, crazy statistic, right? Stipe comes down, drops his shoulders, and then punches Cormier in the liver. He hadn't thrown a liver shot the
Yep.
entire fight, right? He
Right.
hadn't thrown that punch the entire fight. He finds it in the 4th round, so they're on minute 16, 17 of this brutal fight. He throws one liver shot. DC drops his elbows slightly. He
Immediately
sees
sees
that
it,
he
yep.
hurt him, and then get this, everybody, over the next 2 minutes, he threw 16 more liver shots.
Oh, 16 more, yeah.
16 more. I think he threw 17.
Wow.
He didn't throw that punch the entire fight. When he found it once, he spammed that shit and busted up Daniel Cormier's guts until he couldn't keep his hands up, and then hit him with a 1-2, dropped him, put him on the fence, and then finished him.
But he could only,
Masterful shit.
True, but you have to be so durable to have lasted 3 rounds of those in-your-face punches to be able to say, you know what, these aren't putting me out, so I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a couple on the face, but I'm going to exchange for something that's new. Like, that's 15 minutes of watching your opponent hit you with fairly similar things.
And
right?
once he found it, he knew it.
Well, yeah.
He knew it right away, because
and
otherwise
late,
he would not have thrown it so many
you're
times.
more tired, you know, like as the rounds are getting on, things like that. Plus, if your hands are up the whole time, you know, and he's got that extra range, it's asking for it.
Yeah,
you know?
and, well,
but only if you have confidence in your chin, which he proved in the previous 3 rounds. Right?
Well, one of the crazy things about this, for those of you that don't know, maybe you're new to martial arts or you're not into it at all, body shots in particular are one of the most veteran moves that you can do. And he did this in 2 senses of being just a savvy vet. The first one was that he didn't throw them until late in the fight. He saved them. He saved them until they really add up, the championship rounds in the 4th and 5th round. So right away, brilliant. Because he wasn't spamming it the whole time. He didn't give a tell on it. He waited until they work.
Start shanking that gas tank.
Yeah, exactly. Right when, and then it's like death by 1,000 little fucking jabs and hooks to the body, right? And then, so that's the first way that it was masterful. And the second way that it was masterful was the fact that he adjusted tactically to find it. So it's not just the fact that he's investing in those body shots late, which is huge in its own right, but it's that as soon as he found it, they found that spot, that weakness in the high guard of Cormier, he just dug into it, made a masterful adjustment. It was one of the craziest turns I've ever seen, where you could just gradually see the shift going, and anytime there's a fight that gets finished or near finished by body shots, it's such a technical move, because if you're going to get in close and hit the body like that, especially against someone like DC, where he's a master of being in tight, you have to be way closer to throw a body shot than you do to throw a straight punch or a kick. So to dip your head down, you're up here in your guard, right? He drops his shoulder, loads up his other shoulder, and then he comes up in a punch that you call the liver shot. You're aiming right underneath the elbow, right? There, and you can do it particularly when somebody's punching and trying to throw the cross. You can slip it, or you come right around and
kick
hit
as well, right?
And it is just the most brutal strike. Greg and I and his wife were talking about this yesterday. Again, for those of you that don't know, anybody, any day will take 100 headshots to 1 liver shot in terms of pain. You don't feel it when you get punched in the face most of the time. Unless it busts your nose or it busts your jaw, the pain is not really a factor. It's just kind of like snaps you out of it, but you have to respond to something so quickly afterward that you can't really indulge in the pain, right? You just got to go. You just got to react right away because you just got hit. But the face ones you don't feel unless it's like nose, eyes, or mouth. But if you get hit in the chin or something like that, you just generally
nose,
don't
eyes,
feel
or
it.
mouth, also known as the face.
Yes. Straight on. You'll feel that because it'll bust your nose or your eyes.
And for the shaft.
But other stuff... like the liver shot, that just shuts you down. It is the most excruciating pain. Go watch Jose Aldo and Jeremy Stephens. If you watch that fight, Jeremy Stephens is one of the toughest guys to ever fight in MMA. I mean, he's just a dog. Jose Aldo hit him with a perfect liver shot, and you see the pain and the horror on his face.
Crumble.
One of the toughest dudes in excruciating pain. He just goes into the fetal position, and it just locks you up. It contracts everything, and it's so fucking painful. And to throw a punch like that, a technical punch like that, late in the round, and change the tide of one of the biggest title fights of all time in the heavyweight division.
I feel like that was like a plan of his going into the fight. I feel almost as if I'd heard him say the way to beat Daniel Cormier is with body shots.
Well, Dominic Cruz definitely said that.
Okay, but that was during the fight.
But I mean, it's a narrative because he does have that high guard. But the thing is, nobody's ever beat him with body shots. I mean, he's been hit. He got knocked out once by John Jones.
Someone has.
Well, now, but that was never a glaring weakness for Cormier or anything like that. But Stipe just found that punch.
Maybe everyone just assumed that they couldn't hit his liver because of the.
He's got that dad bod.
Yeah, man.
He's got that Roy Nelson belly.
Yeah.
You throw the liver.
Sour beers are like the liver shots of beer, for sure.
It's a punch in the liver in a way.
Well, because we were talking about, how do you get removed from your consciousness or control, right? What are the major areas? Obviously, you can get hit in the nuts. Not great. Invert the shaft, terrible. Yeah. But that liver shot.
Invert the shaft.
You have these kind of like nerve bundles and like different, and I don't believe in chakras, but they kind of align with where your like traditional.
Well, you have vitals.
Exactly,
you have vital areas that
chakras
if you get hit in, will fuck you up.
Not the other way around, So you have this nerve bundle that at the kind of, I think it's the base of your spine or just behind your kidneys, and that, controls digestion and things like that.
That's why you're not allowed to rabbit punch in boxing.
Rabbit punch?
Yeah, to the kidneys.
Oh right, no. But I'm saying like. That bundle of nerves is also things like liver, and right. So if you get that liver shot in, completely overwhelms everything. Now you got signals shooting up and down your spine. Your body locks down, right? Same as obviously getting knocked out by getting punched or kicked in the head. That kind of jars that whole bunch of like nerves up there. But there's also the solar plexus, right? And that's what we were talking about, because you have that bundle of nerves. It's like the cardiopulmonary bundle that's like heart and lungs and things like that. So be able to hit these like nerve centers and shut people off, absolute art.
Yeah,
right?
that's the solar plexus is right up there with the liver shot. The liver,
undervalued.
Yeah, for sure. I know the straight right to the sternum. I like to throw that all the time when I'm sparring. I'll throw the jab and then I'll dip down. A lot of people go to the stomach, but I'm aiming right there where the front of the mic is, right? If you hit here in the abdominal muscles, it'll still hurt, but you got that muscle protecting. But right there, just below your chest, right in the middle, that's the solar plexus. And if you get hit in the solar plexus, what it does is it makes it so that way you can't take a breath. So you get this crippling feeling of almost drowning because you're like, and you're sucking in
like
oxygen.
being winded, right?
You're trying, but nothing's working. So you get that paranoia for a few seconds that you're dying before you can actually like take a breath. So unlike the liver shot, which can knock the wind out of you too, but it's just locks up everything to where you can't move. You're like a hermit crab, just like stuck in a shell.
I remember playing on an unattached to the ground swing and being a total little idiot kid and swinging back way too far, and then having the whole swing just go and fall, and that whole crossbar hit me right across the ribs. And just that feeling of like, yeah, totally.
Yep, you got to invest in those body shots. The thing about them, though, is they are a technical punch. So it takes a long time to be able to throw them confidently in a fight, especially with a close-range guy like Cormier. That's why that thing was...
And it's nice as well, that solar plexus punch you were talking about, is if someone... Because you come off the jab, if someone's then ducking down and their chin is lower than usual, you can hit that chin as well, right? If you're trying to tuck it in
we
there.
were watching the fights, and one of the coaches said, punch him in the throat!
Right.
Punch him in the throat. Now, he's not literally saying to punch him in the throat, but when you're in your stance, when punches come down, it's a really common reaction to duck your chin.
Yeah.
One, because it will prevent you from getting punched in the chin, which knocks you out, and another one is it will allow you to take the shot on the forehead, which doesn't do as much damage. What's up? We're gone.
It breaks someone's hand.
Continue? Okay, cool. So you duck your chin, and you can catch it on the forehead, which will hurt the hand, and it tends to not rattle you as much. So the coaches will tell you to punch him in the chest, punch him in the throat, because when they dip down, you'll hit the chin.
Romero caught a couple of times like that as well.
Yeah.
Because this is when he wasn't sticking his tongue out.
Yeah,
But
what was
I don't know.
The whole fight, he's like,
No, did anyone mention it at all?
Is he on like ecstasy or something, dude? He's just like...
Just tasting air.
It's like, what's going on, dude? I was waiting for him to get kneed in the chin while his tongue is out, and then it just severs it, and it's flopping on the mats.
There's psychological warfare, right, that goes on.
But he never did that before. What is
Not that I
tongue,
can remember,
though?
but
What
it's
like,
is
this
it
is going
like
to scare you.
but every time he did it, we stopped. We're like, what's he doing?
And
Right?
then
So
Costa
if you-
started doing it. So they're
Back.
they're like these weird guys in a cage fight punching each other and then sticking their tongues out at each other.
It was like Romero's tongue the entire time was still tongue colored, and like Costa's was bloody. So it was like in that back and forth, Romero still feels like he's winning. Yeah. It's like, oh, your tongue's getting bloodier and bloodier and bloodier. Keep showing me your tongue then.
Who do you think won? It was a close fight.
I thought Romero won it.
A lot of people thought Romero won it.
I thought Romero won it.
I watched that fight only once. When I watched it, I thought Costa won, but I didn't watch it again.
That's what replays are for, right?
I mean, that first round is tricky because they both knocked each other down, and it was a bit wild, and it was back and forth and chaotic. But he's got a couple tough decision losses. That second fight with Whitaker, he wouldn't have been the champ because he didn't make weight, but a lot of people thought he won that fight. A lot of people thought he won this fight. But then again, he had a couple shady ones too, like a Tim Kennedy fight where he was kind of cheating and stuff. So maybe karma's just catching up. He just got $23 million lawsuit from that popping hot for steroids, so he's all right.
Yeah. Well, see, it's not like he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Like
and 42 years
dude,
old.
Like that's a hard dude.
Yeah.
42
years old. Looks like a Greek god. It's insane.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that was the best body fight of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Costa and
bodies.
Romero. And then Diaz and Pettis. What did you think about that fight?
Great fight. I really enjoyed that. Well, I enjoyed it because I like Diaz brothers.
It was competitive, though, dude. It was competitive.
Yeah, but it felt like this is kind of why I felt like Romero should have won, right? Is that it's not just a fight between bodies, it's a fight of wills as well, right? And if you have one consistent, unerring will every round, like for 3 rounds, you're the same fighter coming forward, like do. If your opponent is like, how can I describe this? Has a game plan in the first round, second round then adapts his game plan, third round starts to like mock the other fighter, right? The consistent fighter. Is that an adaptation on the other fighter's behalf, or does the one who's consistent win that mental game?
It can be a bit of both.
Right.
It can kind of, I think, fluctuate.
That's what I'm thinking about the tongue thing, right?
Yeah.
Because he did that most of the fight.
Yeah.
Right? But then Costa was almost like 3 different fighters in each round.
Yeah.
And the last round was like playing it off, blah, blah. I don't know if that was because he felt like he was down and trying to win crowd, or who knows? Like, why do you start doing that? Why do you try to start playing someone else's game?
This is the thing, though.
Do you think you're winning with it, or
even with the tongue thing? Like, there's obviously something there. He's never done it before. I've never seen him do that in a fight. So is he trying to like gross him out? Is he trying to like be peacock for the? Is he a psychological thing? Is he like, hit me?
He looked like a Pokemon, dude.
You remember
Magikarp?
You remember an old fight? It was Frank Shamrock and Boss Rutten. Remember that fight? They're
Was
in
Frank
like
Shamrock wearing his green Electro undies?
Yeah, I think so.
I hope so.
So they're in like what you call in jiu-jitsu a 50-50 position, right? So they're both sitting on their butts and they're kind of leg scissoring, right? Like their legs are groin to groin, right? They're scissoring. And then Boss Rutten reaches out, and this is back in the Pancrase days when they would do palm strikes. So they didn't wear gloves, and they're not allowed to punch each other. So they're open hand palm striking each other. And Frank Shamrock's on his butt, holding his leg, and then Boss has got his leg. And Boss starts reaching over and just slapping the shit out of him, slapping him in the face. And then Frank Shamrock starts going, every time he's just like, and you're just like, and he's making these weird ass faces while he's getting slapped in the face. And you're like, what is the impulse for you to do that right now, dude? You're getting hit hard by the hardest palm striker of all time, probably, in Boss Rutten.
Who won that fight?
Boss won that one, I think.
Okay.
Because they fought a couple times. I think Frank won the first one, and then Boss won the second one.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, it's. Are you trying to beat someone at their own game? Are you trying to show off that it doesn't hurt? Are you trying to throw them off because it threw you off? Or you're like, oh, shit, I'm affected by this.
Did you watch the Santos-Jones fight from about a month ago or something like Thiago Santos and Jones?
I can't remember.
That was one of those fights where John wanted to beat Santos in his own game. He didn't try to take down the whole fight. He just stood up with him, traded. He ended up winning the fight by split decision in a pretty close fight. Meanwhile, Santos blew both of his ligaments and both of his knees. He could barely walk. He kept trying to throw kicks with the leg that was fucked up. And then it was like, as he would put it on the ground, he gets a little of the stanky leg. Yeah. And he kept doing it over and over and over again. And it looked ridiculous. It looked like a drunken master trying, like he just couldn't have any stability in his legs. Still kicking with the same leg. And Jones just decided to fight him like that, and it damn near cost him the fight.
That's, that kind of mimics the Diaz Pettis fight, right? His ankle was gone really early on, wasn't it? Was it he checked a kick. He checked the Diaz leg kick.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is one of the narratives that's really interesting about this Diaz Pettis fight, is that one of the knocks consistently with Diaz his whole career is that he doesn't respond well to 2 things: kickers and wrestlers. And wrestlers will always take him down. Now, he's got good jiu-jitsu, but he would get taken down on his back, and if you can't tap the guy, you're going to lose if you're on your back. And also, guys like Benson Henderson kick the shit out of his leg. Rafael Dos Anjos kick the shit out of his leg. He's got that boxing-heavy style where he's puts a lot of weight on the front leg, and so people took advantage of it and kicked it. And Pettis is one of the best kickers in MMA, no doubt about it. And so one of the big narratives in this fight is what's Nate going to do with the kicks. And that fight was close. I mean, that was like 50-50. And then in the second round, Pettis throws a kick. Nate checks it, destroys his foot. His ankle's broken. I don't know if it's broken or not, but I mean, it was swollen up. He clearly had trouble walking on it.
It was rolling as he was trying to stand.
So it's a really interesting thing that Nate Diaz had 3 years off. He hasn't fought since he fought Conor McGregor the second time. And then in this fight, the turning point, in my opinion, was checking that leg kick, because that took Pettis' legs away. And then he has to box with Diaz, which puts it in his world.
Who's always coming forward.
Yes.
Right? So Diaz is always coming forward. So you have no time to, like, give your ankle a rest, baby, or, like, stand and, like, trade a little bit. If you're constantly going backwards, you're constantly readjusting your position, constantly, like, giving your ankle opportunities to roll. And he can't stay on the outside because he can't kick. Yeah.
So he's forced to deal with him in the boxing range, which is Diaz's world.
Yeah,
that's his world. So, I mean, it was just another brilliant tactic. Nate looked great. He looked like he hadn't missed a beat. He looked tough. His pressure was there. His fitness was there. And now there's this potential fight with Jorge Masvidal, which would be one of the best fights in a long time because both of those dudes are on fire right now. Like they're both in the kind of cultural zeitgeist.
Totally, absolutely, yeah.
It's like Jorge Masvidal after knocking out Ben Askren became a meme.
Yep.
I mean, everyone saw that clip. So he's on this level now where he's starting to penetrate into the zeitgeist of the regular culture. He's transcending this sort of high-level MMA, and he's getting into like Conor McGregor, John Jones, George St. Pierre, Ronda Rousey territory. He's not there yet. But he's kind of starting to sniff that permeation into the pop culture. And Nate Diaz is already there.
Yep.
Because he fought Conor twice, insane fights, super popular. So that fight with Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, man, that could be a big one. And both guys are just gangster as fuck.
Well, I mean, they said it in the ring, right?
But yeah, Nate Diaz said he ain't no West Coast gangster, man.
Balls.
Yeah, so the MMA landscape right now in the UFC is looking pretty good. And
I was gonna say something. Never mind.
And what was the other big fight there? We covered all the main ones, right? Jones, Cormier.
Who else do we have?
Romero and Pettis.
Yeah,
I'm feeling that
breakfast,
first.
Right? Holy moly.
Yeah, I'm feeling that shit already.
I did not expect that.
This is going to be a rough one. Actually, why don't we take a little break here because we're going to go to the bathroom and just reset the cameras, and then we'll join you guys back.
Cool.
Okay, cheers. Thanks. Okay, we're back from the Stronghold podcast. We took a little bathroom break, finished the beer, feeling a little better.
Oh, I'm still going. This one's lovely. This is a sipper.
Yeah, it's
I'm not crushing this one.
It's not a sipper for me. I'm really finished with it. So we're back. One of the things that I wanted to sort of get your take on, you trained for a little while. You did a little martial arts.
Little being the
training.
operative word.
Yeah,
a little bit everywhere.
What do you think about the martial arts culture? Like specifically the training modality, the people that train. With the people
in
you
Singapore,
train
especially.
Yeah, well, just your training experience.
Obviously, I went to some of the large places and then some of the smaller places, so I got to see a little bit of like different cultures and different gyms. Obviously, I'm going to be biased a little bit towards this gym because it's your gym, but I'm also biased towards it because it's also the type of gym that I like, right? So the whole kind of turn up, log your classes, after this many classes, promotion, it feels too much like school for me. I mean, I guess it is a school kind of thing. But that kind of rotating skill set coming to the gym, seeing new people, like I don't feel like I'm going to get in trouble for going because I haven't done my homework, if that makes sense. You know, like there were times that I would get to the gym doors with my bag on my shoulder and I would grip that gym door, feel the cold metal in my hand, and be like, nope. And like let go and turn around and walk away and go home.
What was that? What was the thing that made you sort of... Was it a little anxiety about the training? Was it just like... What was it that turned you around?
I think it's just everything rolling in together plus like a slightly negative outlook. So you think that either something's going to go... And also, I mean, I tend to push myself way too hard, way too short, right? And look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying really hard. It's like the want to do is massively undermined by the physical capacity to actually do, right? So I remember we were doing like sprints up and down here. I sprint. I'd done sprint.
You sprinted, man.
Like for a good 20 feet. And then the angle changed, immediately just pile drive my face into the floor, right?
I remember that when you ate shit at the whole drive.
Yeah, totally. I did that on my first warm-up run at Evolve, right? We were going around the corner and I slipped.
A little too excited, too fast.
Just ate shit, slipped out, and I was like, okay, this could be a repeating thing.
Well,
but I mean, you know, one thing I loved was being able to train with like people's of like massively different skill sets in the same class, right? That's very cool.
Yeah. And different backgrounds. That's one of the that's one of the things that makes Singapore particularly interesting with the martial arts community is it's very diverse. Singapore, if you're the one person listening from West Virginia or something like that.
What's up, man?
If you're the one person listening from there,
y'all.
Singapore is very diverse. I mean, there's 4 official languages here, like the Indian language, Malay, English, Chinese. You see everybody's multicultural. There's tons of Muslims here. There's tons of Christians here. There's tons of like Buddhists here. And you see all of that when you go on the mat. I mean,
totally.
The diversity is insane.
Like Ramadan effects training for sure.
Yeah,
like
no, people come in here not drinking, not having had water all day, and then they'll come and roll and they'll do jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai for an hour.
That's some... Wow.
Those people are strict about it, man.
Totally, man.
It's one of the best things about Singapore is you get exposed to that kind of stuff. Because I'm from West Virginia. I'm from a small town. There were like a couple thousand people, all of them white.
Right.
So everybody was white.
Right.
So now here I'm the minority. Like I live in Sembawang, dude. I'm the only white dude in that entire HDB area. It's a Chinese, Indian, heartland type area in Singapore. This is where my wife's parents live, and I'm staying there. And I like the fact that I traveled out and I get to see places like this. And one of the other things that's interesting about Singapore is there's these different backgrounds, different religions, but no one talks about it.
Well,
and it's not no one talks to you about it.
Comedians
If you ask people about, they'll tell you, but no one's trying to explain themselves to you. No one's like trying to preach to you. No one's trying to evangelize whatever their beliefs are to you. They have their own, and it's very multi-diverse, but nobody's preaching that shit at you. It's just... It's for them. And I love that about Singapore. It's like religion and everything, it's for the individual. It's not, they don't feel the need to
But it's a mutual respect thing, right? So it's kind of, Singapore is this beautiful little gem, right, in the world. It's this very heavily controlled, but at the same time the control works, right? So you have...
and nobody seems to care too much about the control.
Well,
it's not like other countries where...
It's kind of because it works, right? So in other countries, so in Singapore, for example, in like... HDB blocks, there are different quotas for different like religions and races and families and stuff like that. And the whole point is to force integration, right? So that the kids are going to school together.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter if you're Chinese, Malay, Singaporean, like Indian, blah blah. All your kids are going to grow up together, and it strays away from like, I mean, I hate I don't want to use the term ghettoification, but that's exactly kind of what it would be. Is people creating small enclaves.
Yeah, there's not really ghettos here or projects in Singapore. I mean, it's all like this is one of the insane things about it.
If you say to anyone else in the world, "Oh, most of the housing here is government housing," they'll like kind of like roll their eyes, like, "Oh no, that's terrible."
It's a pejorative.
But then you show the government housing, they're like, holy moly, this is like...
Yeah, the HDBs are awesome.
A-star living anywhere else in the world.
Listen, I mean, I lived in condos when I first came to Singapore, and I sort of lived in the stereotypical, this is where white people live in Singapore, like at the condos by the international schools.
Was it in Holland Village?
I did that. It was a dairy farm.
Right.
And then, but in a nice... sort of expat area of Singapore, and then I lived in HDB flats in Sembawang and in Bukit Panjang. Those HDBs are nice.
Totally.
Government housing is excellent. Big, plenty of space, way more space than in like London, New York, Japan. And you get these 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom HDB flats. They're big for a city. Like
they can be.
They can be.
Depends where. It depends where.
The older ones particularly are large.
I mean, people love the older ones.
But they're not that expensive. And compared to the government housing, like in the U.S., if you're on like the HUD program or something like that, dude, those things are shit.
You only get to own it for what, 99 years?
Well,
longer than I'll be around.
In Singapore.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So like, there's a trade-off a little bit. It does kind of roll back into the system.
Thing that's not necessarily. Well, but that's the thing here. It's like 80% of people own their own place because it's subsidized by the government, depending on how much money you earn, dictates how much subsidy they'll give you to use your. To pay for your housing, and then there's things like the CPF, which you pay 37%, company 20, and I think you pay 17
ish
for the CPF, something like that. Wrong. You got to know this, man.
We're getting a big shrug.
I think it's 37% that you get taken out of your paycheck. Company pays 20, you pay 17, or it's the inverse. I can't exactly remember. And that's 7% of your income that you lose. But
I can't remember if it's on a sliding scale.
But when you're older, you can have access to that money. If you want to buy a place, you have access to that. They will use that money to buy a place for you to live.
If the age doesn't keep getting pushed up from like 55 to 60,
and as long as you don't die before
75 to 85 to 90. You have to be 120 before you can pull out your CPF.
But you can use it for like housing.
True.
And for family. I think you can also use it for
then
school.
All goes back to the government anyway. So it's like, this is what I'm saying. Like there's control that works, right? It's... people, I mean, I say people.
It's the benevolent dictatorship. It's the fantasy, like they kind of had Lee Kuan Yew here, and there was this authoritarian guy, but it was authoritarian in the sense that it was for the best general interest. It wasn't for himself individually. And this is one of the only places that's got, it's got universal appeal. It's kind of built by a one-party government, but everybody's like cool with it, and nobody's mad, and there's not this great division like you see in the U.S. And
yeah, I mean, well, okay, so you don't see a lot of it because back in the day, people would just get imprisoned for it.
No doubt there's some of it. But
it's usually Americans that I talk to about the issue of like freedom, right? So they'll say, "Oh, it's this
freedom
ain't free, bro." So it's usually saying, "Oh, I got the freedom, guns, God, government, all this kind of stuff, like to do all these things." I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't have the freedom to walk down the road and not worrying about getting shot.
Yeah,
you don't have the freedom to like send your kid to school and not have them do." Like gun drills,
yeah.
You
If
you
you're
don't
listening
have the
to this
freedom
from
to
the U.S.,
not see a bunch of your friends die on opiates.
Yeah,
it's like
which is a huge thing where your wife is from.
Yeah, well, I mean, all over the states now.
Yeah,
like that's crazy.
Yeah, if you're listening to this from the U.S., you can put your 6-year-old child on a public bus, and you don't have to go to school by themselves. And
6? Fancy ass little bugger. You should have been doing it at 4.
You don't have a damn thing to worry about with that kid. That kid is going to arrive safely. They're going to be fine. People do it. It's kind of weird to me as an American to think that you would send your kid on public transport, but it is so safe here that these problems
I feel
that you think about in the U.S. are just not. They don't exist here.
Well, I mean, this could be a total misremembrance or like a made-up number, but I believe and I'm sure we're corrected for this, but I believe every unlawful gunshot in Singapore has to be registered, and there have been 12.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, there's just none of those.
It doesn't. It's just not that kind of thing here. You can be, girl in a short dress walking down maybe not Orchard Road. It's a little bit like dead now, sometimes. but you could just go there at 4:00 in the morning. You can go most places in Singapore at 4:00 in the morning as like a girl by yourself and be fine.
Yeah,
like that's such a luxury to have, and it's only if you go to other places and you realize this.
I remember when I lived in New York. That's where I went to college, and I remember one time I got in a fight with an ex of mine, and it's like fucking 2:00 in the morning or something. I'm at her place in Harlem, or somewhere near Harlem. This is Washington Heights, and I just remember
Washington Heights. All right,
it's pretty rough.
Yeah,
It's like the main
Washington
line,
Heights.
Washington Heights, Harlem. It's like 140 something street or whatever. Kind of shady area. And then I remember getting in a fight at like 2:00 in the morning. And I remember I left, right? And then I'm looking around and I felt unsafe.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
And like 2:00 in the morning in Washington Heights. And I was like, dude, if you're a random person walking down just these streets, it feels shady. Here, I would never have a problem. I would just send anyone home immediately. If there was ever an issue at 3:00 in the morning. None of that. You have zero threat. And we're back from technical difficulties.
See, this is the beauty about doing the first time, right?
Yeah.
You gotta iron out the bugs, iron out the creases, iron out the bugs.
Same thing.
Do the bugs put the creases
same.
in the sheets? Is that what? Anyway.
Idioms.
Yeah, I feel like an idiom.
Well, this is the first time we've done a video version of the podcast. We did audio first, so there's definitely going to be some kinks to work out, and we'll make this look a little bit better each time we do it. That would be the goal.
You know what? I opened the last one. You can open this one.
Oh.
So just because we had
one more to go, baby.
Yeah. Well, we have to
Trash Panda.
Work later, so we got to keep it a little bit lighter. So both the beers we've had today are less than 6%.
This label is dope.
It's great. Trash Panda.
Yeah.
AKA
Can you see
Raccoon.
that on the camera there?
What's up, Canadian?
That label looks sweet, dude. Trash Panda. All right. Never had it before.
Go for it. Be gentle.
Oh, shit. I shot the laptop, but it sounds good.
Maybe I should pour this.
Ooh. Very hoppy.
Go for it.
Very hoppy right away. This is
I've had this one a couple times.
This is an IPA, right?
It is. But it's one of them hazy boys. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this whole fad of making beer that looks like orange juice. So let's see how this one looks. It is like...
It smells really good.
Totally opaque. Well,
it smells like orange a bit. A bit like an orange.
It's actually pretty malty for like a hazy. It's not as upfront hoppy as I thought it was.
Oh yeah, me too. After the taste, it's not quite as hoppy as you think it would be, based on the smell.
Could be a touch cold. I just picked these up. I was like, what can I get before the podcast?
But this is very drinkable.
Oh, you know what? This is there's almost like citra at the end. It's almost like rock melon. Am I crazy?
A bit on the aftertaste.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of like an orange peel aftertaste too.
I could talk
like when you get a little too much skin on the edge of the orange.
Okay, and it gets on the bitter side of the orange?
The bitter side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, man, talking fights and drinking beer. I feel like
I know, right?
I feel like this is what I was born to do, man. Drinking beer and talking fights. I'm in my happy place right now.
Hey, man, welcome back. Welcome back.
Cheers,
welcome
man.
back, and bon voyage into this journey of yours that you're taking. Because,
Thanks,
holy
man.
moly, this is super cool.
Yeah.
Right. To be sitting across, I'm nerding out a little bit as just a friend, because I'm sitting next to my buddy in the gym that he owns, behind this dope wall, doing a podcast, drinking some nice beers, sunny day, no airplanes. There's no Hello Kitty car going off outside.
Not at all.
It's killing it.
Well, we're doing
man.
the podcast on the mats at my gym. Mm-hmm. So we got an interesting little dynamic going here.
If you have any ideas for the name of the podcast as well, we are accepting offers. I'm a little partial to On the Mats with Lucas Leisure.
I don't know. I was talking
it's
to
too sexy for him.
I was talking to Greg about this earlier. I'm just not really down with naming shit after myself.
Fair.
Yep. It just feels conceited. I feel like a douche, man.
Yeah.
I was even thinking about it, right? Because all these martial artists, especially in jiu-jitsu, it's all like Renzo Gracie BJJ. All they brand themselves, which is definitely a strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
To try to get your name out there. You name your academy after yourself. Whatever it is, people do it in business all the time, right? But I just feel like I'd rather stand for a concept or an image or something rather than naming after myself. It just feels a little conceited. Charmaine told me to do it, but I was like, it's just. Do you ever say your own name? It feels weird, right?
I hate my name.
When you say your own name out loud, it feels like I can't say my own name right.
I have.
It doesn't roll off the tongue
the
well.
same letter in my first name, Gregg, right? That's lazy.
You're basically one consonant name.
Gregg Speirs. It does rhyme with Gregg Speirs, Keg Spears. So in my line of work, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
so
you can rhyme with it.
Gregg Speirs or Greg's Kegs or
Luke Leisure.
Work with
Luke Leisure. It's a lot of L.
You pronounce it leisure and not leisure.
Yeah.
As well.
Funny story about that. I actually found out from my mom when I was 20 that when she grew up, her parents pronounced it leisure. And then I'm like, why have you been telling me my entire life that I'm pronouncing my fucking name wrong? She didn't tell me until I was in my 20s. And I'm like, great.
Well, I had a buddy.
Now I'm stuck with it.
Leisure? I mean, you can change your name if you want.
No, I'm good.
There might be a Batman bin Superman up for grabs soon.
Superman.
Yeah, we'll see. He got in trouble again.
Real guy, by the way. If you're, what happened? He got slashed?
Oh no!
Batman bin Superman got slashed. He
Oh,
wasn't
shit.
doing enough of that close quarters training, man.
Dude, I thought
you can't have a name like Batman bin Superman and not be a fucking badass.
How about
if he's not Keanu Reeves-esque, what are we doing?
Open shout out to Batman bin Superman.
Yeah.
If you want to come
on
train.
the podcast. If
you
Batman,
go.
if you're listening.
Yeah.
I'm Batman.
From Superman. That's the niche.
Listen,
That's
dude,
the
if
niche
you
part.
want to be on a podcast, I'm down. Batman bin Superman. Find me.
You heard him here first.
Find me.
You heard it here first. Totally. And be able to have these kind of longer form podcasts that are 45 minutes, an hour and a half, depending on the guest, depending on what it is. You get time to explore all sorts of things and all sorts of genres, and especially because we're in Singapore, I'm gonna bring it back around to nerd stuff.
Bring it back to nerd culture, baby.
Because
I want this podcast to be two things. I have two passions in this life: martial arts and fucking video games, dude. So
beer and video games right here. And soon I'm trying to get that third leg. I'm trying to get the
the martial arts.
The martial arts, the beer, the thing. If I can gamify
it's a pie
martial
chart,
arts,
right? You just need to shift the pie chart to more one side.
Well, we'll see. Kid coming.
Well, I think the guy that helped me set this podcast up, one of my students, Ryan. Shout out to you, Ryan, in Pennsylvania. He says, he's doing his PhD at Penn State right now for some fucking nerdy, gamey type shit. He was literally working with game psychology, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. Loves gaming. He had a job where he was a game coach, he coached people in League of Legends.
Damn.
People were paying him to go and do that kind of stuff. So he tells me that he's got contacts in the Singapore gaming scene.
Love it.
And I definitely intend on getting them on the podcast.
Singapore is such a crazy cool vortex, right? Because you might not have people that come here for more than 5 years, right? But you'll get so many people that cycle through here for 3 to 4.
Yeah.
So all the industries that are based here, so you have the gaming industry, you have voiceover work, you have all of the very kind of techie things. I think, what was it? It was creative based here, back in the day. It's just this little Asian hub, this little Asian mecca for these weird, interesting people to all kind of connect.
And it's very transient, to your point.
Totally.
Every 3 years,
Yeah.
you get a new cycle of people, a new cycle of foreigners.
So I've been here I'm 34. I came here when I was 4.
Yeah.
So like I've been around a little bit. I had some years in Australia. I went to Scotland for uni, but like Singapore's always been my home. And it was a little bit disparate between the groups, right? There was a little crossover in those very niche subjects, but Singapore's such like a gaming people. Like young Singaporeans love gaming, right? So all that crossover is starting to happen a little bit more. All of that crossover is now starting to take place on the mats as well. So
we were just talking about this, right? About this culture here that's very unique. And I said it earlier. Eddie Bravo talks about nerd assassins in jiu-jitsu. And let me tell you something. 100%. You think they're nerd assassins in California, come to Singapore and then talk to me about nerds. This is the king nerd culture, man. I'm the fucking going to do this. I'm going to be the king of the nerds. All right? Because these are my people. I love Singapore, man.
Studying is the martial art of Singapore.
Everybody's studying like... I don't know what it is about the culture here, but those kind of people are made for jiu-jitsu because it does come to the point where you were talking about gamifying right earlier in your life, and that's what people tend to do here. It's not really so much competition, but it is a little bit more of a game. Like jiu-jitsu in a Western context, I think in America, it's more considered a sport. It's like a competition. It's like
kick your
winning.
Ass, bro. I'm gonna kick your ass.
Whereas here, it's much more of like a case study.
I'm going to study harder.
It's a case study here of martial arts. It's not about beating you. It's about solving a problem, which is, I think, a way more logical, detached way to view martial arts, which is what I like in people that are doing martial arts, right? Is having to step back. Don't be emotionally connected to it, because that's when injuries happen and egos come into play. And it just needs to be a game. I hit you more than you hit me. I touch you up. I tap you. There's a parameter, there's a rule set to this game, and that's what I teach it to kids, right? Everything's a game. Who's going to win? Whoever gets a takedown. That's the goal, right? The game is I take you down, I get a point, right? Okay, we're going to play guard now. One person's on top.
I bet you can take those kids down super easy, though. Like, you get all the points.
I'll destroy those kids. They don't stand a chance. 5 of them could attack me at once, and they're all going down.
In one kick.
In one roundhouse.
Wheelhouse kick?
360.
Wheelhouse kick? Roundhouse kick?
I think it would take 30 kids before they could take me out. And they would all have to mob me at once. That's a good question.
Because like 5 versus 11.
Yeah, once they
30 11-year-olds, you're getting stumped.
It depends on if they can dogpile me or not. I should just like stick out my arms and then spin 360 full power, but then no, that has a time limit on it. What's the strategy for fighting 39-year-olds?
How many?
What's the best way to
I don't know,
gamify this situation?
39-year-olds are nearly 40, so like maybe they're a little bit tired, so probably drag them into deep water.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, but
point is, if you're a 9-year-old and you're thinking about it, you don't stand a chance.
But you might stand more of a chance if you come and train at Stronghold.
Yeah.
So give yourself a leg up.
Bring 40 of your friends and let's do an experiment.
That's not what I meant.
No,
but hell.
But it's interesting, though, because this is one thing that I always think is interesting. I literally get paid for the last 6 years to beat up kids.
Yep.
Part of my salary.
Teach them to beat
Part of
each
my
other.
salary.
Safely.
No, I beat them up. I don't let them beat each other up much because kids the same age, they don't have control. So it's not them beating. If you bring your kids to me, I will beat up your kids for you. And I will do it with a smile on my face and love in my heart.
This sounds so terrible.
It's interesting, right? Because I say the same thing about my wife. And it's just a joke, right? I'm just talking shit.
Yep.
But it's one of these interesting things. My wife, for example, is an owner at this gym. She's been training with me full-time for about 4 years. Maybe a bit more. And she's getting to the point now, 6-7 days a week for 4 years, nonstop. She's always training. So she's getting to the point where she's getting some skill. And like when I spar with her, if we're doing Muay Thai or even grappling, she's getting to the point now where I have to push her a little bit. Because before it's just play, right?
Plateau, you
just
need
play,
to
and there was such a level difference that everything was teaching her. But I was telling you earlier, now she's getting to the point where she's getting enough skills where I have to up the intent. You slowly up the intensity. Otherwise, you're not going to build the skill that's necessary as people start to go up higher level. So a lot of my training with her gets more physical. And when some people watch it, they're like, dude, what are you doing? You're beating up your wife. And I'm like, no, it's very controlled. It's very specific.
So personal. It's because it's like the most personal relationship you can have.
This is where the dynamics get weird, right? Because it's one of the fascinating things about my job. But we have bad days. We have bad days where we train. And we have bad days where we train and we're sparring with each other. And you have to be able to kick and punch each other. And my wife, God bless her, she's. I'll get her on the podcast one of these days. She is the type of
Charmander.
person who's emotional like everyone else. And listen, if you have a bad day
Yep.
and you're in training and you're sick of getting hit and then
Yep.
you get kicked one time
Yep.
and then she'll all of a sudden she's throwing hard shots because she's mad.
Yep.
And this is more husband beating than wife beating. I'm just like weathering, like, oh God, what's going on? As I'm like touching her, she's swinging like full power on me and stuff. And there's this weird dynamic that develops. And one of the most fascinating things, and it's also true with the kids, because you're building them up
Yep.
from small, and you're trying to slowly push them.
Prepare them as well.
But you have to push them. You have to make them
Yeah.
uncomfortable because it's martial arts.
Yeah.
You're learning how to punch and kick and grapple and choke and armbar, and even the kids that come in for jiu-jitsu, when you're learning how to do a rear naked choke on somebody,
Yeah.
it's interesting to explore the dynamic of how in martial arts we're teaching you to not be violent
Yeah.
at the same time that we're teaching you how to apply violence. And there's this
Controlled
interesting,
violence.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it does in fact work because I can tell you right up, I've been studying martial arts for 15 years. I've never been in a street fight in my entire life, never once. I've never gotten to the point where I've been in an altercation and wanted to hurt somebody. I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for so long. That situation is so like unappealing to me because I've been exposed to it so much. And martial arts has that effect. Once you learn the control, it changes how you view violence.
You fear less in terms of like how you're going to react. It takes that big question mark away. So
Yeah,
like, people
that's
don't
the first
freak
part.
out and like
That's the self-confidence that
Yeah.
will come with it. That's the first part. But then after
well, not
the self-confidence
confidence to be
comes...
like I could beat this dude's ass or whatever.
No, but the
you know-
self-confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that's step one, right? Is it builds that self-confidence, which is why it's great for kids. But then step two of that, this is the harder step, which is when you have that ability, when shit does get weird and you're at a bar and some dude starts talking shit, you have to have self-confidence in that situation, but not have the ego to the point where you'll get sucked into that conflict. And when you know you can beat somebody up, this is the thing, like when I was in Canada, a lot of the guys there, I trained at Adrenaline Training Center. It's a huge gym in Canada. I spent 2 years training there. Mark Hominick, Sam Stout was there. Chris Hordesky was there. Chris Clements, they fought in the UFC. It was big. I was there when Hominick fought Jose Aldo for the title. And those dudes like to fight. A lot of them were in their 20s, mid-20s, and they would go to bars and pick fights because they would fuck people up.
Yeah.
And they liked that. They sort of played into that dynamic, and they would go out and look for trouble sometimes.
Do that in Singapore, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Well, this is a difference of
Yeah.
the dynamic, but it also gets me to the point of when you train, it builds confidence
Yeah.
to a point. But then at a point after that, you have to learn to walk softly and carry a big stick. That's the goal of martial arts, right? You want to be the
100%.
guy that never needs to use it,
Yeah.
but if it goes down, you can handle it. But you will withdraw from those situations any other time unless violence is enforced upon you.
It's like in any movie, like during fight scenes, and then there's one quiet small guy. and everyone's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, you want to be that guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy that the ladies want. That's the guy that's cool, right? The guy that's sitting in the...
Fair.
It's not the 20-year-old bro who's
Yeah,
like, "Are you going to fight? You going to fight? Come at me, bro. Come at..." Don't be that guy.
Yeah, right.
Okay, just don't be that guy. Be the quiet guy
If there's
looking
any
menacing in
takeaway
the
from
corner
today-
who's just cracking his knuckles when the violence goes.
Looking
You're not going to
menacing?
jump in, but you're
Not even
just...
look menacing. Just like nonplussed.
Yeah,
that's even
exactly.
scary.
Yeah,
and
that's
menacing.
yes, that's way scarier.
You know.
You just sit there and observe, totally detached from the violence going on around you. But this is one.
So movie script.
Yeah, so that's the next goal when you start the training is you have to learn when those situations come to you, which they will. Someone's going to have a bad day and call you an asshole. Someone's going to run into you in a train. You're going to get in a car accident. You're going to, whatever that thing where you have that one day every couple years where you're all of a sudden in a situation that's escalating and you haven't been in that for a while and you don't know how to react. Not reacting in a big way there is the goal.
I mean,
right?
on the mats you are fighting to not die, right? You don't want to get choked out. You don't want to get your limbs broken. You know, so you're reaching these adrenaline peaks in a rolling session. Well, I mean, it depends on the style of rolling. You could be having like a slow roll or just like...
Depends on who you're rolling with, too.
Exactly, yeah, totally.
If it's a competitive roll, you'll get it.
Well, yeah. But so once you have these peaks established, that totally resets the graph of your adrenaline.
Yeah.
Right? So then those day-to-day things don't bother you as much because the adrenaline spike is so little, or like any of that reaction that you get it just doesn't register. Versus if you had never done any of these things that pushed you, if you have this absolute flat baseline and then anything triggers you, you're gonna go off the charge, blah 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 blah. You know, because you just don't have that. You don't know where the top of the scale is.
Yeah.
You don't know
you have
what
no point of reference.
Exactly. I think that's so important. I want to train I'm having a daughter, like Luke said. I want to train her to be an absolute feral killer. You know, I do.
But to not show it.
No.
Walk softly, carry a big stick.
Yeah.
That should be the goal for any person, right? Is to have the tools to do what you need to.
Was
but
that president?
You don't
President say that?
That was
Theodore?
Roosevelt. That was Teddy Roosevelt.
You got the first, like, at the second seat?
Yeah, man.
Jiving.
He was a guy that was interesting. Roosevelt. He was a lifelong martial artist. He actually went.
Really?
He actually went blind when he was in office because he would hire people to come and he would have a boxing ring set up in the White House.
He was a boxer. Yeah, I didn't know he was just like a.
No,
well,
he
I guess
he talks about jiu-jitsu too. He
Oh,
did
really?
judo
Wow.
too. Yeah, he did grappling too.
Was he charged the Light Brigade, or was that? Did he or Rough Riders?
Yeah,
up the hill.
Rough Riders was Roosevelt.
Badass, man.
Yeah,
I think
he literally went blind in office because while he was a sitting president, he organized a sparring session with like pro fighters, and he got hit so hard that he fucking went blind in one eye. This is the sitting president of the United States during the colonial era
You're not
of
supposed
the
to talk
U.S.
about Presidential Fight Club, Luke.
I know that him and Lincoln apparently was a grappler too.
Really?
I don't know if that's true, but Roosevelt for sure. I heard
Lincoln
that
looked
rumor.
like he had really long limbs. Maybe he could set up triangles like super easy.
Yeah, chopping wood all
Just
day,
for
dude.
River. He chopped wood all day?
Wasn't he the log cabin guy?
Oh, jeez, man. This is your country, not my country.
I don't know.
Although I should know this because I'm married to an American. Well,
Yeah.
I do.
So,
Yeah, well, it is what it is. How those cameras do it.
Yeah, I think actually we're going to probably wrap it up for our first podcast. If you're listening to this, thank you so much for coming. Greg, my man.
Buddy, what's up, man?
Thanks for doing this with me.
That's Stronghold. Look for all of the socials and stuff. Oh, what's up? Look for all of the socials of Stronghold MMA and things like that out after this video. If you want to buy some Trouble Brewing beer, you can go and do that. Look at craft beer shops and look online, Trouble Brewing. We didn't talk about nerd stuff like World of Warcraft. We can do that another time.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get a game culture podcast coming soon. Thank you guys for listening. You can check me out. You can find... Oh, right there. Thank you, Wugong. We can find me on the social medias. Lucas Leisure on Facebook, Lucas Leisure on Instagram, and then you can check out stronghold.sg if you want to come and train with me. Also, if you're cool, you like to train, you like to talk shit, hit me up with an email.
Totally.
And let me know if you want to come
a
talk
great
on the
place.
podcast or train. The email is strongholdpodcast@gmail.com. So drop me a message there if you liked it. Let us know in the comments if you enjoyed the podcast. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you very
Cheers.
much.
Peace out.